I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves and just what city you're in, how long you've been leading, and maybe even a highlight of one win that's been happening recently.
Hello, I'm Rochelle. I'm the Young Adult Coordinator in Willmar, Minnesota at Willmar Assembly of God. I've learned that literally everybody knows at least one person in Willmar, even though we're in the literal middle of nowhere. I've been leading since, July of 2022, so about 8 months. Our young adult ministry runs about 30 to 40 people. Great win we had was we had Josiah and Micah out last February 6th. We had our largest night of 47 people, which was like an increase of 50% of where we started at in September. So yeah, we just had a great time.
It's because we talked about relationships.
It totally
That's
is.
Why.
It totally is.
Hello.
People love to hear about it.
I'm Reba Gray, and I'm a pastor in Alexandria, Minnesota, where the camp is. My husband's the lead pastor there, and I do kind of a bunch of things, but my favorite thing is the young adults ministry. I've been leading it about 1.5 years now. It's been going about 2.5 years, and so we've just seen incredible growth and life change mainly, more than anything, just seeing people get connected and through real relationships start to see their life change and the trajectory of their life go in a whole different direction. So it's been awesome.
I love it. Well, my name is Micah once again, and I love talking about relationships. Young adult ministry is one of my passions that began about when I was about 25, just being a young adult myself, trying to figure out life and extreme adulting. And just to give you some insight, adulting doesn't go away no matter how old you get. So if you're even 50 and beyond in the room, she says shoot, just beyond that, adulting, it's extreme and it's fun, and it's fun to navigate with young adults between the ages of 18 to 30 and working and coming alongside of them. So Josiah and I are super passionate about that, and we've been on staff at a local church. We've been on staff with Chi Alpha for 4 or 5 years, and then that's why I said we launched the 501c3 nonprofit, Young Adults Today. So that's why we're here. And Josiah, I know that this panel is essentially designed to just kind of come alongside and just kind of unpack some of the things in young adult ministry, things that we're seeing, things that we're up against, some things we've seen in our ministries. It's just an amazing thing. But I want Josiah to kick it off, and we would just been talking and praying and just really leaning into the Holy Spirit of like, what does he want to say through us, and what is he exposing to us, and what are we seeing in this world? And Josiah, if you could just set the stage for us, like what are the 3 greatest longings that we're seeing across young adults in the experience that we've seen? What do you think those 3 things are that we've kind of uncovered?
Yeah, I think like data would really suggest this, and we've seen it like on a college campus, like a public community college, through the podcast questions that come in, also working and ministering at a local church. But I think that the 3 greatest aches or longings that I've seen among Gen Z, the first is that it'd be really rare for a young person to know a best friend that they could call at like 2 a.m. if their car broke down. It also would be really rare for somebody to say that, yeah, an adult cares for me. Like I have somebody who believes in me. Like to the tune of 2/3 of people, 66% don't think that anyone cares about them. So what I see is this ache is loneliness, and we have the opportunity to meet the relational needs of young adults. Godly community is a cure to loneliness. And the second ache that I would just really see is our information, like we're in the information age. Young adults are like drowning in information, but starving for truth and wisdom. And then Proverbs teaches that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, and wisdom and insight flows from him. And I think that that's so powerful. So first is community, second is wisdom. And then the last one is just purpose. People are, I think a lot of the young adults I meet, they're like, okay, yeah, I know that, like, I got a job now. Is this all there is in adulting? Like certainly there's got to be something greater. And so that's our opportunity to vision cast, to share the heartbeat and the mission of Jesus. But those 3 things, as far as like moving from isolation to godly community, moving from just information to sort out wisdom. And then lastly, I think to go from a lack of meaning to help discover purpose and call out purpose in young adults is huge. And I just wanted to ask each of Rochelle, Reba, a question to get things going. And then if you go to youngadultstoday on Instagram, there is a poll and a question drop box where you can ask them a question about young adult ministry, okay? So you guys have some time to think, and only 2 questions are going to come from Micah and I. And so we'll kick it to our phones in just a minute, but we, again, want to involve you in the conversation early and often. You might be from a church and you're like, hey, we just started. What's it like to start a young adult ministry? You might be like, oh man, I'm just taking over and I'm 2 weeks in or 2 months in, or my pastor sent me here this week. And I would just say, like, this is a great, none of us has all the answers or claims to be an expert, but if we can help each other share ideas, share resources, that's our heart. And so, Reba, I'm going to gear this question to you, but what insight would you have for a leader launching or relaunching a ministry for young adults?
You know, I've learned a lot, and I've got a leadership team of young adults that have helped me a lot to learn. I think one of the biggest things that I found, especially starting out, was to keep things really relaxed. You know, I know that I wanted to like plan everything out, but I needed to give space for them to make it their own. And so our young adult ministry really started as just a small group. We had a couple guys that were like, we need friends. We need people to hang out with. And so they just, like 4 or 5 of them hung out, and then they started doing it every week. And in about a year's time, it just blew up to like 30 people. We're like, well, clearly there's a need. Let's make this a ministry. And so that's when I kind of took over and added some of that structure. But even within that, the nights that we meet are very low-key. There's a lot of space at the beginning, at the end, for people to just talk, to hang out, play games. And then anything I do as structure is really just an opportunity to engage some of those conversations and relationships so that it's not just boring the whole time. So that, I think, has been really helpful. I think it's gotten people the buy-in, and as well as creating it their own space. So it's not the Reba show. It's not my thing. I'm really just creating a space. I'm just creating the opportunity. And that's when they show up and they invite their friends, because they know when their coworker or their friend or their schoolmate or whatever talks about being lonely, they're like, I've been there. Come to our young adults. So we're hanging out. It's a great place to meet people. That's not the bar. I feel like that's kind of the resigning thing I hear is, how do I meet people my age? That's not the bar. And so that has been a really big thing. And just from the get-go, adjusting my expectations to realize, like, it's not really about numbers right now. Like, we're just trying to just get people together. You know, I think as pastors, as ministers, we kind of have these big dreams and big goals, which is awesome. But sometimes just starting out, like, let's just get people together, you know, and that be the goal. And if 3 people get together, it's a win. You know, and starting small, because it can be easy to get discouraged. But if you keep the long-term goal in mind, then you won't get stuck on the week-to-week attendance or, you know, feeling like you're not getting anywhere. But just getting people together, that was our goal. We want people to build relationships with each other. They're around their same age, and build some get closer to God. And so that was a simple goal that we could meet right at the beginning. And now we're kind of shifting our goals. Now that we've kind of established that, now we can kind of go in the next step. So
I think that's so good. And Rochelle, this next question is for you. So you are a young adult, you're Gen Zer, leading Gen Zers. So can you just lean into what is it like leading people maybe your age, and in addition to that, even older? Because you're under 25, if I'm correct, right?
I'm 20.
You're 20, see? So she's closer to the 18 than the 30-year-old in the room. What has that been like, and how would you just, like, process that out loud with us? Like, speak into that when you're leading people who are asking for insight, who might be 28, and you're like, I'm only 20.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing.
I feel like, wow, this is really loud. I feel like over these past 8 months, I've found a lot of peace in leaning into my age, trusting that God has placed me here for a very specific reason. So anytime that I face doubts of, I'm not here for a purpose, I don't really know why I'm here, I know it's true that God has a purpose for the stage of life that I'm in, for the season that I'm in, for the ministry that I'm in. So I know that anything that's contradicting that is coming from a lie from the enemy. So I know it's true, and so when I have those thoughts of, like, man, this person's 25 and telling me I should change this about my ministry, even though I've prayed through that, or they're saying I need to change these times or do this. I'm like, well, I know I'm here for a purpose. I know I prayed through this. And so it kind of comes back to knowing my purpose and calling in the ministry that I'm in and the age that I'm in. I would just say it's also super easy to fall into the pressure of doing ministry for your peers when you're my age. And that, while yes, you're creating an environment for people who are 18 to 30, and that's exactly where I'm at, you're doing this for an audience of one. You're not, I love creating experiences. I love creating any extra curriculum, small group content. I love all of it, but it's easy to catch yourself performing for your peers versus performing for what God has. And so that's been just a constant reminder over the past 8 months of like, okay, who am I doing this for? Why am I doing this? Ultimately, to get people to Christ. So if I love creating environments where people can walk into, it's the ultimate goal of Jesus is going to meet them here. Not because laser tag is sick and we get to go play laser tag. Like, that's awesome, that has a place, but it's ultimately because we're creating a community that's pointing people back to Christ. And I feel like I've just learned a lot that ultimately young adults are looking for consistency. So at the beginning of the year, we saw 60 young adults. Like, I had individually met them, but we were only seeing like 27 to 32 because they didn't know if the next Monday night was going to be as powerful or as good. But ultimately, when God's saying, you showed up week to week, he's like, you're doing what I'm asking you to do. Let me take care of the rest. So it's been a process of just learning, like, okay, I'm doing this for an audience of one. I would do this if 2 people showed up, or I would do this if 45 people showed up. So just kind of organizing my priorities, I think, is what it comes down to.
I love that. That's so good. And I just want to encourage the audience, like if you find yourself, maybe you are more towards Rochelle's age and you're trying to navigate people who are 10 years older than you, and they have opinions and they have preferences and they have all these different things that they think that they can speak into or want to. And in reality, like, you're trying to just herd cats at times, right? It just feels like, just come, just like Reba said. We're creating an opportunity for young adults to come. And I just want to encourage you as young adult ministry leaders, no matter how old you are, the tension that you're always going to wrestle with, and I honestly do not think it ever goes away, is when people come to you, am I their friend in the moment? Am I your pastor? Or am I your mentor? Those 3 things, trying to uncover those layers, can get very messy, because sometimes you're living with some of your roommates that are your best friends that are under you in a form of ministry, and that can bring tensions back into the house. Or maybe it's a spouse, so it doesn't have to be roommates even, but just really recognizing and realizing, okay, what personal boundaries do I need to put up as a leader when it comes to these 3 things? And it's not to cut people out or off or to make yourself unavailable. It's to recognize, okay, there are people that are going to want to connect with you just because of the title that you have. And if they have your ear and you have theirs, that can just become very messy sometimes. And then you put the dynamic, if you're single and you're looking to be married someday and you're leading people, like, that just puts a whole different level of confusing and complication on top of it. So I just want you to know, if you feel like you're in one of those categories of recognizing, oh my gosh, I'm single and I want to be married, I'm leading people, mentor, disciple, pastor, friend, who am I in this conversation? Just put it at ease, like, it's okay, and you're not alone, and you're not the first person to experience that. You're not going to be the last. It's just inviting God into that process of, God, illuminate the people who have my back as my friend, who's got my 6, who are the people we're doing it linking arms with, coming beside, and where are we going, and how are we going to do this together? Because it's not creating our own ministry and building our own kingdom, it's building God's kingdom. So it's a unique tension to manage when you're leading young adults, and maybe the older you get, the easier it gets on some levels, but there is some weird tensions you still have to manage. So
I want to lean in back a second, because you were talking about the age and stage and season of life and young adulthood, right? Adulting's hard, and so there's singleness, there's dating, engagement, marriage, all of the different, and then there's career and all these different pivots. But you've had pivots of your own, Micah, like you were in Bismarck, North Dakota at Evangel, launching a young adult ministry. You helped out at Cedar Valley. You did campus ministry, and now young adults today. I look at, like, asking the room, I get the feel that, would you say, by a nod, show of hands, how many of your ministries are really geared at college students or Gen Z? Okay. Opposed to, like, your ministry is geared towards millennials. Any hands in the room where you're gearing towards millennials still? Okay. I've noticed that, Gen Z is those born, 1997 to 2012. So I'd be curious, Micah, having done young adult ministry with millennials and now gearing it towards Gen Z, do you notice any differences?
Oh man, there's a ton of differences. And they're good differences. But one thing I've really realized, and this is when I think I graduated, stepped into a college, university, and every single building I came around the corner was like leadership, 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 leadership. And I'm like, okay, now we're the leadership university of the world. Like, there was this overemphasis on becoming a leader, becoming the strongest leader, becoming a leader that has followers, and just lead, 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 grow in this area and thrive in this area, which is great, and that's a great thing to lean into. But when it comes to Gen Z, what I've really realized, even the last 3, 4, 5 years of doing more or less working with Gen Z, is influence, influence, influencer. And they're both not bad, but it's like, how do we manage that tension in our ministries when half of the people that we're leading is like been told leadership is where you need to grow, leadership is where you need to grow as a personal person with a following, maybe not even on social media, but just in life. And then you have the young adult who can become an influencer overnight and then become a YouTube sensation, and then they're dealt with all those social things that come their way from, I don't know, getting canceled or getting called out, getting called up, whatever it is. And I think just realizing like, wow, we are in a day and age where we all have the ability to influence, right? It's just a matter of what we're going to do with that influence and where we're going to impact and how we're going to carry that if we're claiming to be Christians in that process. So that's just one big umbrella that I've really seen over leading the two. I'm a millennial myself, so I understand the leadership concept. So when influencer came up, I'm like, wow, this is the next word for the next 10 years until there's a new word. So I don't know what's coming next, but just really recognizing just the approach and how people lead themselves and lead others. Where leadership was like you had people doing life with you and you had followers, where influencers is it's all about me and I don't need to follow anybody and they can just watch my life. So it's just interesting. That's my perspective.
It's a fascinating observation. Leadership, millennials, and influencer with Gen Z. And Rochelle, this question came in for you just as far as balancing content creation or content and community. And I think that you've taken on a new vision leading young adults. What's your balance or rhythm, or how have you approached that?
Yeah, so our ministry runs every Monday night. We have one together night at the beginning of the month where we have all of our different small groups in the same building, have a typical service layout. The other 3 Monday nights, I was about to say Wednesdays, Monday nights of the month, we are in small groups in homes. And so content creation versus small groups, I've found it's really helpful. We do what's called module learning. And so we have a video that's usually 40 to 50 minutes long, but with content on whatever topic. Last month I interviewed different people on relationships, and throughout that we have about 5 to 7 minute timers every about 10 minutes throughout the video with time for discussion. And so our content creation comes with the idea of I can preach at them as much as I want, but unless they're discussing it, unless they're digesting it themselves, it's just going to be a video that they watch. And there's, like you said earlier, there's so much information out there. So we've come to the approach of I want to make this as effective as we can while they're digesting the information that they're taking in. Oftentimes we'll put verses to look up in the middle that tie into the end of the video, and just kind of, make it a balance of they're in a community of, our small groups run about 10 to 15 people per small group, and they're in a community, they're breaking up into discussion times, but they're also getting content of whatever, pouring value into their lives through videos as well.
I think you hit on something that Tim Elmore talks about. Gen Z isn't looking for more stages from sages from the stage. They want a guide from the side. And your approach about less monologue, more dialogue hits that completely. And if you have not seen, you should totally talk to Rochelle at the after party or throughout the conference. You should take a look at what she's set up. I hope you caught it, but it's picture a YouTube video that's 50 minutes long, and there's teaching, and then there's a break, and then there's 5 to 7 minutes built into the YouTube. You should totally just ask her about it, see if she'll make it available to you. But Reba, go in a similar but slightly different direction. consistency is one of the challenges. And you've been launching and leading a young adult ministry for a few years, but that's one of the key things that has come in this question. You can still ask more questions. Time for a few more, but consistency, right? It's like sometimes Rick Warren says it's preaching to a parade when it comes to young adults, because they're moving, they're going across the country, and like, how do you lead? And so how have you like challenged the status quo of inconsistency in your leadership of young adult ministry?
You know, our consistency is we meet every week, unless it's like Christmas. I mean, there's obviously those times, but I love, in fact, just last night we had this. There was several people that came who I haven't seen in months. And I don't know if they're following us on social media. I don't know how they are in contact with us, but they know that we're going to be there. So our young adults are going through so many things in life and different stages of things and like emotions and all that stuff. And so my job is to be kind of that. They know they can come back when they're ready. And something, I don't know if this plays into that question or not, but I wanted to touch on it, that one of the things that I really want to emphasize through what we do is just an entry level, a place for somebody to enter at whatever stage of faith they're in. So we have something different every week of the month. The first week we do just an activity night. So that was last night. We just played games. We just hung out, had some Just Dance going, just a place where if somebody's not really comfortable with God and with those deep talks, they might come on they know that the first Thursday of the month, they can just come and hang out and meet people. Then the second week, we have a speaker come in or have more of like the message sermon style. And that's maybe for somebody who's, maybe not fully wanted to go super deep, but want to get a little bit more about who God is. The third week, we have a family dinner. So this is a favorite because there's food. We do like potluck style. Everybody brings, we kind of have a theme of the month. Like last month, it was breakfast food, which was one of my favorites. And then I have somebody from our usually our congregation, who's like a seasoned Christian, a little bit older. They share their testimony. And out of that has come mentorship opportunities. It's allowed for those young adults who come on Sundays to meet some of the older people or people that aren't just their age, and they can connect with them, say hi to them, start building those intergenerational connections. And then the last week of the month, we do our small groups. So we'll watch a video and we'll break up into small groups and those are really when those life change, those really deep, meaningful conversations happen. You open up and be real. And so it's interesting to watch the type of people who come on the different weeks, depending on kind of what they're comfortable with. Some people are like, I want to go deep, I'm ready. And so they love the small group nights. Like that's their favorite night. And so it's an opportunity. And as people are growing in their faith, they can, okay, I'm going to try a small group night. We'll see how that goes. And so it creates opportunities for everybody at different levels. But also this idea that we're not just trying to replace a Sunday morning service. We want to really get our young adults into the local church. I feel like you see, youth group was so big it still is big, but I just remember there's youth group and then you graduate and now what? You're kind of expected to just be a participating member in the church as an adult, but you've never really seen what that looks like. Or that can feel really intimidating, or you don't feel really like, how do you do that as an adult now? And so I found that there was that void, and so one of my hearts is to equip them to really be participating in the local church. We actually have, our young adults are probably our number one volunteers on a Sunday morning. And we have so many young adults, and it's amazing, and they love it, and they feel like they're a part. Our young adults are crucial on they're vital to our Sunday morning services, and they are becoming members, they are obviously serving, and they're just getting more up in leadership in our local church. And we have people that go to other churches too, and I'm hoping that happens there too. But we've had a lot of people that come to our young adults, and now we are seeing them on Sunday mornings, because we actually don't do like a service where we have worship and a message and that kind of thing on purpose, because we don't want that to replace what they could get on a Sunday morning and with the other saints and the other generations, because we don't want them to just become this little clique on Thursday nights. So really getting them involved in the church and how they can do that, and we've seen that really great, and that's one of my favorite things, is getting them connected with the local church.
I think our opportunity, right, is to help think one step ahead for somebody. Have you been water baptized? Are you part of a small group? Have you ever served? I love hearing those testimonies and reports, such wins. And Micah, you taught me about touch points, contagious community, young adults. The bar's open 7 days of the week, and church might be one. Talk about touch points.
Man, I think touch points were something I really learned that were crucial when it came to young adult ministry, because young adults were living life every single day, whether we were in the classroom doing life together, whether we choose to do the nightlife together or roommate situation, whatever that is, and really realizing that the more connected people are to the people they've been doing life with, the deeper they're going to go with their walk with the Lord. So how we set it up back even in North Dakota was like Tuesday night, it was like Bible study night in our home. And I lived with 2-3 other girls, and it was amazing because it's like it went from like 18 to 20 to 30 to 40. Our pastor found out it was like 40 young adult women from 7 p.m. till midnight every Tuesday night. And he's like, you guys gotta divide this up. We're gonna multiply. Let's multiply. Who are the co-leaders? So really realizing like on Tuesday nights was our Bible study night. Thursday night was our large group, so 250 young adults every single week would get together and do worship and after parties and everything like that. And then on Sundays, we would all sit in the same section of the church. So when you're doing life with like 2 or 3 of your best friends, or 20, 30, 40 of the people that you see week after week, 3-4 times a week, those are just the structured organizational things that we put together. That's not saying like, I'm living with you 24/7, or we do Wednesday night appetizers, or we go out to Buffalo Wild Wings after a Thursday night service. And then with those touch points, like if you're a first-time guest with a touch point on a Thursday night, you would receive a handwritten card or postcard in the mailbox, as a first-time guest with a gift of just saying like, hey, here's a $5 gift card. We hope that you enjoyed, it was called the UG, United Generation. Hope that you enjoyed the UG, and then you just write something and make it meaningful, like, hey, praying for you in your semester testing. And when you get a crowd like that, then you're volunteers who understand the touch points, and understand that we have access to these young adults, then let's utilize the access and let's meet them where they're at, meet them at their table, or set the table for them when they come through the door, and their guard goes down. Like, it's amazing to see, like, their curiosity peaks to like, why are you guys so nice here? And their fear decreases. And it may take time for some, but when you create more touch points and opportunities, people thrive, and they're like, when's the next whatever? And then they're like, where's the after party? Or when are we doing this again? And then they have some skin in the game, and then they're wanting to plan events. And all of a sudden you realize, wow, they're like one of our lead volunteers on the worship team or the tech team or hospitality team, whatever that is. So when you equip the saints, essentially is realizing that every single person that walks through the door has the opportunity and the potential to offer the rest of the room something, no matter how big or small we think they are or how big or small we feel in those moments. So when we have those touch points, I think it just sparks something on in their life of like, wow, community, consistency, Christ, church, the 4 C's, which we all need each and every single day. But if we're not doing it together, we kind of fall off the wagon. So when we do those touch points, what we have seen become of that is like when we see somebody move cross country, they're saying, Mike and Josiah, what church do you know of in the Arizona area? What do you have? What do you see? How can I get plugged into the church and a young adult ministry or whatever it is? And it's like, wow, and that's the first thought of your mind, because your job changed. You're thinking about, where should I live because there's a church nearby, not where is all the eateries or what's the most beautiful view. It's like, how do I get connected to people again when God's called me out and planting me somewhere else? So growth happens when we provide opportunities for those people.
It's phenomenal. And we're going to kind of close with this question that you can each speak into. And I'd be so curious to know, this question came in as just like for the pastor, for the leader, for the volunteer who wants to get things started. You picture like they're just getting in the car, turning the key, firing up the ignition. What was maybe one thing that for you starting in your role with ministry leadership that was kind of that high octane, the spark plugged, and it revved the engine? Like, what's one passion point that you have that you'd say, if we could only do one thing, we'd do this? Or if you were starting, don't miss this.
I would say, being a young adult myself, something that gets me very, 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 very excited is creating environments that I would like to walk into as a young adult. Last October, we did journals that went along with our small group content, and that came about because I was sitting thinking, I was like, if I was just a normal attendee, what would I like to walk into as a young adult walking into my small group? And I was like, oh, it'd be cool if we did journals, we had discussion prompts, and then just from there, it totally blew up. And so I would say for me, the excitement, the fire is creating something that I would like as a young adult. And then from that, I get to roll it out to my leadership team, and I'm like, what do you guys think of this? I'm so excited. I can't even, oh my goodness. And I'm just going 1,000 miles an hour, and then they hop on board and get so excited. And then it just kind of trickles down into watching new people get engaged, watching people who've maybe come for a long time but haven't really engaged, kind of see that spark. Or something that I find challenging is we have a lot of people that I've grown up with in church come to young adults, and my question for them is like, they've seen it all. They've gone to every single camp at Lake Geneva. They've gone to every single revival night, every single youth night. Like, what can I do as their leader, as their pastor, that's going to spark something new in their relationship with Christ? And that has just been super exciting to hear feedback from them of, oh, I really liked this, or oh, you could do this differently. So yeah, I get excited. I just get passionate.
I would say, for me, it was not doing it myself. I have a team of young adults leaders that we meet and talk about, like, what are your ideas? You know, what do you want to see? Because as soon as they get excited about something, then they're going to invite their friends or tell other people, because I don't know. I mean, I'm not that far from a young adult, but still I'm a mom, and so I'm a little bit more removed from that time of life. But also getting them intentional about what their role is when we meet. So I encourage them, like, make sure that if there is a new person that you've not seen, go say hi right away. And it has made such a difference because there's not these little pockets of cliques. Somebody comes in, they're unsure, and they get greeted right away. They get joined into the group. They get joined into the game that they're doing. And that has allowed people to feel comfortable right away. And I think we've created that environment. And so then when we have those key leaders doing that, then we've got other people that see that, and then, oh, I'm an extrovert, I'll go say hi to them. Like, it just creates this culture of, like, we say hi to new people. Like, if you see somebody you've never met before, go introduce yourself. And that's just kind of now become the habit. And so now people know that, oh, I can invite my friend because I know that even if I'm not there, somebody's still going to talk to them. And so that's been key.
Oh man, there's so many. I think authenticity, is one of the biggest things. What you see is what you get with me, and I'm real and I'm raw, and God's teaching me how to tame that throughout the years, don't get me wrong. But just knowing that there's a generation that wants real, authentic people and friendships. Like, they don't want the perfect image of anybody except for Christ. And I think when we are authentic, it just creates space for people to break down the walls of whatever reservations they have about faith or God or Jesus or a Bible study or somebody's intentions. And we can only take people as far as we're willing to go ourselves as leaders. And I was a personal trainer for many years, and I would say, like, I'd make them do things. I had a group of 5 ladies that I'd meet with 3 times a week, and like, Micah, we hate you. And I'm like, you know what? Hate me now, love me later, because you are seeing results. And it was just fun because I'm just like, oh, sometimes it's like that with young adults. Like, you just got to do things like, and I would never make anybody, I'd say that to the ladies because I would never make them do anything in the gym that I could not or would not do myself with them. So when they see that you're living authenticity in your life is spreading through how you pursue Jesus, how you love others, how you lead, and just how you set the table for others, and how you're truly equipping people in the process because you want to see their gifts and their skill sets to come to life. When you peel back the layers and you get down to the authentic heart, it's like, wow, pure heart, pure motives, clean hands, like, that's what we want. And so I think authenticity no matter what it is, I think is something to say. And even authenticity, like, guys, we didn't know this project was going to go on in our home church right now. So we're being authentic and real, saying, we're sorry there's a mess in the hallway, but you know what? It's beautiful in here. So we're just being real and authentic, not knowing what we don't know, right?
It's amazing, and we'll have to have you guys on the Young Adults Today podcast because there's more questions that we just ran out of time, but I think that'll be exciting. Can you give it up for our panel?